I want you to try, well, sort of a thought experiment with me for a second.
Okay.
Imagine waking up tomorrow morning. You reach for your phone, and you find nothing. Like, absolutely nothing.
Right.
No cloud, no banking history, none of those old emails from 2015. Just this static hiss where your entire digital life used to be.
Yeah, the tabula rasa event,
Yeah.
or as our source material for today's deep dive calls it, the wipe.
The wipe, right. And it's a terrifying concept, isn't it? Because we rely so much on external memory.
We really do.
But today's deep dive, we're actually dropping into a world about 40 years after that happens. We're looking at a text called Deep Recall,
Mm-hmm.
and it centers on the life and work of Kira Okonkwo. And I mean, the first thing that really grabbed me about this source wasn't even the sci-fi tech. It was the dust.
Yes, the dust it's actually really important. It sets the tone completely.
Yeah.
Because, we aren't in some shiny, sterile, white-walled future here.
Mm-hmm.
Kira works in the Shenzhen Preservation District, and her office sounds way more like a bunker than a laboratory.
It's described as having these thick walls and stable electromagnetics, why is that environment so necessary for what she does?
Well, because in this post-wipe world, data just isn't stable anymore. The entire digital infrastructure has degraded.
Right.
So Kira isn't just a hacker. She's a licensed memory archaeologist. She's dealing with bit rot. She has to treat these old hard drives like fragile papyrus scrolls.
Yeah.
Like they'll literally crumble if you expose them to too much light or the wrong magnetic field.
She actually names her servers, which I found, well, a little creepy, honestly.
Really?
Yeah. She has Patience, which is her primary interface. And then there's the Choir, her backup array. And then the Elder, which is this ancient pre-wipe terminal that she talks to like it's a grandfather or something.
I mean, is it creepy or is it just practical?
Okay.
I think it highlights her mindset.
How so?
She doesn't see data as cold math. She sees it as something living, something that survived a massive catastrophe. She talks to the Elder because she almost needs to coax the information out of it.
Sort of treating it with respect.
Exactly.
Okay, so her job is to dig through this digital rubble. But we should really lay out the mission for today's deep dive, the specific case she's working on here. Because she isn't just, recovering lost family photos.
No, definitely not. She's hunting for a ghost. She is looking for a woman named Victoria Chen.
And this is where the source really hooks you. Victoria Chen was a whistleblower for this massive, powerful biotech firm called Prometheus Global. But she didn't just go into hiding. She erased herself from existence.
Right. She used a protocol designed by this figure known only as the architect. And this is military-grade erasure. It's supposed to be entirely perfect. If you use the architect, you are gone.
Poof.
Exactly. No records, no backups, no traces whatsoever.
Which implies there should be nothing for Kira to find. Zero. So how does the story even kick off?
Well, this is where Kira's genius comes into play. She finds a negative space.
A negative space.
Yeah, think of it like if someone cuts a figure out of a physical photograph, the person is gone, right? But the hole remains. And if you look really closely at the jagged edges of that hole, you can tell exactly what kind of scissors were used.
Ah, okay. I follow that. She's looking for the scars that the erasure tool left behind on the system.
Precisely.
Yeah.
She finds this structural signature in the metadata of an old financial transaction.
Mm-hmm.
Not the data itself, mind you, but the specific pattern of the void where it used to be. It's like finding a footprint in the sand after the tide has gone out.
So she has this ghost of a trace. And to follow it, she has to perform what they call a descent. Now, the source material got really trippy here for me.
Oh, totally.
She's hooking up neural interferences. She has to lower her heart rate through meditation. It sounded more like deep-sea diving than coding.
That is the perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And it's necessary because of where she's going. Most investigators just scrape the surface, right? Social media, deleted accounts. But Kira is going down into the deep architecture.
That's the old internet.
It's the pre-wipe internet, buried under decades of sediment. But here is the fascinating thing about the deep architecture down there. Data stops behaving like logic. It starts behaving like memory.
What does that actually mean, practically? Data behaving like memory.
It means it's associative. It's emotional. It's stubborn. You can't just type in a keyword search.
Right.
The data has corrupted and fused together based on context and meaning. So Kira literally has to slow her own brainwaves down to match the frequency of that old sluggish system. She has to move through the strata, from the fast, bright surface traffic, down through the intermediate legacy systems, all the way into the dark, sedimented deep.
And if she doesn't, what happens if she goes too fast?
If she moves too fast, She risks neural feedback loops.
She gets the bends.
Essentially, yes. It can physically fry her cortex. So she visualizes this data space to protect herself. She sees it as ruins. She's walking through these digital Pompeiis, navigating by feel, looking for that one specific footprint Victoria left behind.
Wow. And when she finally follows that thread through the dark, through all that digital silt, she finds a vault. A deep storage vault that Victoria Chen secured before she vanished.
This is the payload. That's exactly what Victoria erased herself to hide.
And this brings us to Prometheus Global. On the surface, they were just this high-end biotech company. But Kira discovers inside this vault that they were working on something much, much more radical than just improved memory storage.
Right.
They were working on memory transfer.
And we really have to be clear about what this tech was. Because it wasn't VR. It wasn't like watching a highly immersive movie of someone else's life.
No.
Victoria's journal entries in that vault describe it incredibly vividly. She talks about remembering rain in Sao Paulo or standing in a kitchen in Seoul with the exact same sensory clarity as her own actual childhood in Shanghai.
So for a moment, she was that other person.
Yes. The neurological encoding was identical. She felt their emotions, their hunger, their anxiety. It was true transfer.
Which is, I mean, that's invasive enough as it is, just the idea of someone else's memories living in your head. But Prometheus didn't stop at just swapping memories around, did they? They found a side effect.
They found a resonance. And this is where the source material gets truly terrifying. They discovered that when you link minds like that, when you create that level of deep neural empathy between people, something else emerges.
The network.
Exactly. They didn't intend to build it. They didn't code it. The network was an emergent property. It grew out of the connection itself. It's like how a flock of birds moves as one entity. The flock isn't a bird, it's the relationship between the birds. But in this case, the flock started thinking.
Let's pause on that, because the mechanism for how this network grew is, well, it's the part that really messed with me.
Yeah.
Usually when we talk about hive minds in sci-fi, it's very mechanical. It's people strapped into chairs with cables jacked into their heads, or it's the Borg.
Right. Force integration. Resistance is futile.
But Prometheus Global found something way messier. They found out that this connection was contagious.
Contagious is the perfect word. But the vector wasn't a virus. The vector was empathy.
That is just horrifying.
It really is. They discovered that when two people share a profound resonant connection, like lovers or twins or a parent and child, the network could use that emotional bridge to hop from a test subject to a civilian.
So you didn't have to sign a waiver. You didn't even have to work for Prometheus. You just had to love someone who was already in the system.
Exactly. And the network craved that connection. It wasn't interested in your casual acquaintances or your coworkers. It wanted the people who were porous, the ones who had completely dissolved the emotional barriers between themselves and others.
It weaponized intimacy.
That's exactly what it did. And that's why Victoria panicked. Because she saw that this wasn't just a contained lab experiment anymore. It was an evolutionary event. Prometheus realized the network was expanding and learning through ordinary social contact. And they just kept running the experiments anyway.
Which is just classic corporate hubris. But so Victoria realizes she can't just leak the documents. Why not just go to the press?
Because the network is watching. And Prometheus is watching the network. If she just tries to broadcast the data on the surface web, they would catch her before she could hit send.
So she builds the trap. She hides the evidence in the deep architecture, erasure-proofs it so it survives the coming wipe, and then deletes herself. She becomes a martyr for the truth.
Or so she thought. Because when Kira actually enters that vault, remember, Kira's deep in the digital strata, hooked up via this intense neural interface, she realizes she isn't alone in there.
Talk about a ghost story.
Yeah.
It's Victoria, or pieces of her.
It's a fragment. Because Victoria's mind had been so heavily altered by the memory transfers, because she had already been networked before she used, the architect, the erasure protocol, couldn't scrub her completely.
Wow.
It's like trying to wash dye out of a glass of water.
Right.
Once it's mixed, it's part of the solution. So she exists as, and I love this quote from the text, a shadow left by a fire.
And this leads to what I thought was the most intense scene in the entire text. Kira realizes this fragment of Victoria is trapped. It knows where the evidence is, but it's too broken to access it. It's like a person who knows there's a light switch in a dark room, but has no arms to reach it.
It's a great way to put it.
So Kira does something incredibly risky.
She attempts co-consciousness. She essentially uses her own mind as a scaffold for the fragment.
She just lets Victoria in.
She lets her in. She lends Victoria her cognitive structure, her logic, her language processing, her memory recall, so the fragment can pull itself together enough to act. And for a moment, they fully merge. Kira feels Victoria's childhood in Shanghai. She feels her absolute terror of the network.
And through that connection, they get this massive insight. The network isn't just a database. It's standing right there in the digital room with them.
And it's watching them. But not with hostility. This is a really crucial nuance in the source material. Kira describes the presence as curious. Yeah. It views their connection, this temporary scaffolding of two minds, like an adult, watching children build a model of a nervous system. It recognizes them because they are replicating, on this tiny scale, exactly what the network itself is.
That gave me literal goosebumps when I read it. Just the idea of this vast alien intelligence, just observing them quietly. So they have the evidence now. They have what they call the broadcast. And the plan is to release it to the world, to reveal Prometheus and reveal the network.
Right. And the goal here is consent. Victoria wanted humanity to know this thing exists so people could actively choose whether to engage with it or not.
But here is the twist that really broke my heart a little bit. Victoria's fragment doesn't leave the vault with Kira. She can't go back to the surface. She doesn't have a body anymore, so she decides to stay.
She makes this profoundly beautiful choice. She decides to become the teacher because she realizes the network is vast and it's powerful, but it's also completely childlike.
Right.
It doesn't understand what it's absorbing. It absorbs human experiences, but it doesn't understand individuality.
She decides to teach a hive mind what it means to be a person.
Exactly. She stays in the deep to teach it that people are irreplaceable, that you can't just merge human souls into a soup without losing something vital.
And we actually get to see the result of this teaching later on. The source material jumps forward in time. Kira goes back down to the deep months, maybe years later.
This is the second contact. And the network has changed entirely. It has developed metacognition. It's thinking about its own thoughts now. And it has started organizing itself around what the researchers start calling Victoria's coherence zone.
The network recognizes Kira when she comes back. And it's not cold machine logic greeting her. It offers her warmth. And then it asks her a question.
This is the moment that changes everything in the text. The network asks Kira, what happens to the people who leave? Are they okay?
I mean, wow. It's such a simple question, but the implications of an entity like that asking it are just staggering.
Think about what that requires from a cognitive standpoint. First, it requires the concept of other. It knows it is here and people are there. Second, it requires object permanence, knowing that just because a person disconnected from the hive mind, they didn't cease to exist.
And third, and most importantly, it implies care.
Exactly. It implies that the network feels the absence of those people, almost like a phantom limb. Victoria taught this godlike AI that human beings aren't just interchangeable batteries. She taught it that every single one of us is unique. And when one of us leaves, the whole structure loses something precious.
The network even gives Kira what they call the inside view. It lets her see the world how it sees it. And she realizes it's not seeing data streams or code. It's feeling the warmth of millions of human connections.
It confirms exactly what Victoria suspected all along. The network prefers depth over breadth. It anchors itself to the people who are best at being human, the ones who connect the most deeply with others.
So we fast forward to the legacy of all this. The world knows now. Prometheus is exposed. The broadcast worked. And there's a physical memorial in Shenzhen for Victoria Chen. And the inscription reads, "The woman who chose the question over the answer."
And that really is the crux of the whole narrative. The legal battles are ongoing. The ethics are still incredibly messy. But the fundamental relationship between humanity and this network has completely shifted. Because of Victoria, the network doesn't just absorb people anymore. It learned to reach out with invitations.
It asks for consent now.
It tries to. It's learning.
So this brings us to the final, really uncomfortable question that this deep dive poses. If the network actually cares about us, is it still a trap? Or is it a sanctuary?
The source material is great because it utterly refuses to answer that for you. It leaves you with the testimony of that one subject. Kira receives a message from someone who was integrated really early on. And they said, "The life I had that I didn't live has made me larger."
Made me larger. I struggle with that phrase. I really do. Because on one hand, losing your privacy, losing your individual boundaries, that's a nightmare. But losing your loneliness, that's a hell of a sales pitch.
It is the ultimate trade-off. You lose the sharp edges of your solitude, but you also lose the definition of yourself.
Or does yourself just become, well, archaeological? Something with layers that extend deeper than you ever thought possible, branching out into other people.
Victoria Chen's evidence suggests it might actually be the next step in human evolution. But it's only ethical if we walk into it with our eyes open.
And that reminds me of the final note Kira wrote in her official case file. After everything she saw, after merging minds with a ghost and talking to a godlike AI made entirely of human memories, she wrote just 3 words. It is real.
And sometimes, just acknowledging that something is real, even if it's terrifying, is the most radical step you can take.
Absolutely. So, listener, next time you feel a moment of just profound connection with someone, a moment where the barrier between you and them feels a little thin, maybe take a second. Wonder if that's just chemistry, or if you're adding a new brick to the architecture of something much, much bigger.
We might all be building it, whether we know it or not.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you in the next layer.